What's up, everybody? It is March 1st, 2023. Welcome to Live with WSO. I'm Patrick Curtis, CEO and founder of Wall Street Oasis, for those of you that don't know me. Basically the format of this live stream is to answer any and all of your questions. So I usually like to come on for anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour, answer questions around career, networking, interviews, anything with investment banking, private equity, hedge funds even. I'm a little less experienced with the hedge fund and asset management realm, a little more experienced with the investment banking and private equity world, since that's where I had my early career many years ago. So welcome. Any questions? I will try to be responsive and get to everybody. Right now we are streaming live on IG, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. I think that's it, right, Amir? Let's get started.
We're live everywhere.
Awesome. So Nicholas says, what do you think about Canadian pension funds private equity? Nicholas, from what I've heard, I think you're talking like OMERS and stuff. I heard they're a great place to work. I think work-life balance tends to be really great there. I think the pay relative to that lifestyle is excellent. I think the work is interesting, especially if they're making direct investments, not just doing co-invests. I think it's a great place. I think I'm not sure if you have a more specific question around what I think about it. Also depends. People up in Toronto, people in Canada. Toronto definitely is a little financial hub there, but obviously not as many opportunities as there are in New York or London. So it's a little bit harder in the sense of like Canadians trying to come to the US. The visa issues are easier than a lot of other places, but I'd say that if you can get a job there straight out of undergrad, that's an excellent place to be for sure. You can build a career there, a long and lucrative one with interesting work, and learn from great people. So I'd highly recommend it. As expected, Amir, it always kicks me out of Insta when I'm trying to watch my own live. So I'll keep it going. Let's see. Any other questions? Are we live on LinkedIn? What's that?
Yes. I'll feed you in with the question.
Cool. And then Kendall asks, Piper Sandler or RBC New York, summer analyst? Should I hold off for something better? In the pipeline for some elite boutiques and other firms have 2 exploding offers. Ooh, Kendall, this is tough. This is great. So Piper Sandler, RBC New York, honestly, it's tough for me to kind of thread the needle there. I don't know how deal flow has been going on both of those. What I can say is if you go to the Wall Street Oasis company database and you look at return offer rate, this is something where our company database can actually become really handy. If you go look at percentage of interns receiving full-time offers, I would go wherever there's a higher percentage of you receiving a full-time offer. So you should ask people who are working there, because that's really good data. Like what percentage of interns last summer received full-time offers. And then you should look at our database, company database, for both Piper Sandler and for RBC, and get a sense of like, is one much different? Like is Piper Sandler like 85, 90% offer rates and RBC closer to 60%? I'd probably lean to Piper Sandler to have that full-time, more secure full-time offer coming into this recession. I think that would be smart. Should you hold out for something better? I would say at this stage, if you're at risk of having your offers explode, no. However, you should be notifying all the other lead boutiques and bulge brackets and wherever else that you do have exploding offers, to see if they can run an accelerated recruiting process for you. So, because a lot of them will, if they know you have an exploding offer, they try to fit you in, they try to get you to see a few people and get an offer to you as well. It's funny. It's kind of like anything in life. Like once you have one, you have many. Once you're wanted by one firm, you're wanted by many. So the hardest thing is getting that first offer. Kendall said, you love both firms and cultures. Yeah, so it's a tough call, Kendall. I would try to talk to people who are more currently working there. So like analysts that just left, ask were they supportive when they left. Ask more specifically around like certain groups within each firm, so you can kind of get a sense of what groups you might want to be in. And if you can actually, maybe there's a group you really want to be in because you really like the people that you met there and you've heard great things. Maybe you could say to them, hey, I have another exploiting offer. Would I be able to be placed into this group or get some assurance that I'd be placed into this group? I think that would be a better way to kind of leverage your negotiation than kind of putting any offer at risk, trying to wait out for an elite boutique. But congrats. That's a big deal. So I'm going to throw everybody a curveball here. What are the most valuable hard skills to break into investment banking as an analyst? So your definition of hard skills is different. So like the typical answer here would be like accounting, know your accounting based questions, your valuation based questions, and financial modeling. Know how to financial model. But when you're talking about breaking into IB, what matters so much more than your hard skills is your soft skills. Your soft skills is going to be like dramatically more important. Yes, you need to have the hard skills and know the technical knowledge and interview questions. But if you don't have the soft skills to get to build relationships, to get on phone calls prior to the interview invites going out, the odds of you dropping your resume online and getting an interview are extremely low, extremely low. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're a 3.7 GPA, 3.8 GPA from a top school. It's just going to be low just because odds are that no one will even look at your resume. So most valuable hard skills to break into IB as an analyst, really accounting, financial modeling, valuation, that type of knowledge. If you are looking to build that knowledge base, I would definitely check out our elite modeling package over at Wall Street Oasis. Amir, can you put a link over to that? That's going to give you kind of all those hard skills. I almost would say before you invest in that, I would invest in like the actual interview course, which is going to be much more about getting the job, and the skills to get the job are a little bit different than the skills to actually excel on the job. So there's kind of two different patterns. There's two different paths. Like one's getting you up to speed on your stories, your soft skills, your fit behavioral questions, which everyone underestimates and thinks, oh yeah, I'm really good at those. I have my stories, but they don't realize it's not about how good you are. It's about how good you are relative to all the other candidates. And so if everyone else also thinks they're great, no, that's by definition impossible. Somebody has to be average and somebody has to be exceptional. We want to make sure you're exceptional on the soft skills and the answers to the behavioral questions before I'd be like, hey, you're ready to go. So yeah, there's that. Yeah, the elite modeling course is here, wallstreetresearch.com's courses. You can find it it's actually the elite modeling package, and it's under courses. The courses drop down hover menu at the top. So, oh, and just for reference, that package includes Excel modeling, financial statement modeling, valuation, DCF, M&A, and LBO. So 6 courses in one discounted package. So check that out if you are interested in building those hard skills. I think it's probably better to wait till you actually have the offer to invest in that and to spend the time. I would look at the interview courses first because you actually need to get the offer, and that's easier said than done. Kendall asks, which one has the better exits, going back to RBC New York versus Piper Sandler? I would look at, it depends what exit you're talking about, Kendall, but I would look at, if you want to look at private equity, for example, you can go into, actually, can you do this? I'm trying to think. It's more university. I'm thinking more university, sorry. For specific firm exits, I would probably say I lean a little bit toward RBC just because it's a little bit of a bigger name and bigger platform. But if you're looking for like middle market, lower middle market, Piper Sandler is also is now a pretty big platform itself since with that merger. So a little bit hard to say because things have been moving in flux the last few years. But I'd probably lean a little bit RBC there. But I would again talk to recent analysts that kind of left and see if they were able to get looks from recruiters and what that process was like for them. So try to see like, okay, look on LinkedIn, say, analysts from RBC, previous experience, look at where they are and kind of start mapping those out. So try to get like a full map of like what percent, where all the RBC analysts went, what are they doing now? Try to get a kind of sense of percentage, and it'll give you a sense of like how easy it is to make certain jumps. You should do that work, by the way. You should absolutely do that because things shift from year to year. So it's kind of easy for me to stand up here and be like, oh, this one's definitely better. And, but to actually get the real data off of LinkedIn, or to get as much of it as you can off of LinkedIn is a better move, to get more kind of current data. Let's see what else we got. Question from LinkedIn. Aryan says, why do some private equity shops require an MBA to move above associate VP, even if the person already has experience in IVP? Couldn't possibly be the technicals. Good question, Aryan. I think a lot of the partners, there's some funds that still have partners that are a little more traditional, where they all have their MBAs. They view the time getting their MBA as a time where they matured. They learned how to speak to management better. They learned how to run a business better, and they feel like the network that it builds for them in terms of being able to get access to deal flow, having connections to both bankers and other private equity people helps long run for the fund. So that's part of the reason. To be honest, I kind of agree with you. I don't think the MBA is absolutely necessary. It's you're right. It's definitely not a technical skill set, because by the time you're a pre-MBA associate, if you've done like once you've done like 5 deals, you've done 10 deals or 100 deals, it doesn't change much. So obviously there's complexities deal to deal, but in terms of the process and how it works, it's not like it's dramatically shifting each time. So I'd say, yeah, it's definitely not technicals. It's not deal experience. It's more of like maturity and network that they want you to have in terms of being able to manage people, being able to mentor the new associate class coming in, and then just making and then just branding also for the fund. So like if they have a lot of Harvard and Stanford MBAs and Wharton MBAs, it also looks good for the fund in terms of fundraising and whatnot. So there's that as well. But maybe that's changing. We will see. I don't know. I think enrollments have been down for MBA programs, or at least applications, in the last several years. So I'm curious if that's a trend that's going to continue. Although I did love my time at Wharton, so not to bash it. I love my time there. Let's see what else we got here. What do I think about City IB London? Is it good? Yeah. I mean, it's bold bracket, good name, deal flow. I'd ask the forums. They're going to know better than me. So wish I could give you better info, but like, yeah. And it's the generic questions like, is it good? Like, it depends what you're measuring it to, right? So it's like, this is like kind of like the questions of like, what are my chances? Well, how hard are you willing to work? How much are you going to network? How much are you going to study for your technical interviews? How much are you going to study for your behavioral interviews? What are your chances? Is, I don't know, anywhere from 0.0001% up to 90%. It depends on the person, depends on the work you put in. Question from LinkedIn. So is there a reason I'm not getting LinkedIn questions directly, Amir?
Yeah, we're good. We for some reason it's not popping up.
It's not popping up. Yeah, okay, that's fine. Thank you for feeding them. So hey Jake, best for PE exits. I've been told LevFin, but doesn't matter. I said LevFin and M&A definitely up there. Does it matter? It matters on the margin for sure. But I came from restructuring. I still got a lot of looks from private equity funds. This was obviously a long time ago, but you can make the argument from a lot of different groups that you have the skill set. What's more important than the specific groups is the actual deal experience you have and the reps you get modeling. So when you go into a private equity interview, or you go to talk with a recruiter, are you able to demonstrate that you have good knowledge of like a deal process from start to finish? Are you able to demonstrate that you have the modeling skills necessary to excel, and you're going to make the recruiter look good by passing you on? Or are you going to bomb those questions? And like, do you actually understand why private equity? Do you understand what makes a good private equity investment? Do you understand all this stuff? Private equity interview course. It's a cheap investment for what it's going to teach you. Yeah, Amir, maybe you can throw that up too, so people can see that. Or just, you can just look under courses. It's there, private equity interview course on our site. It has all that. It has practice, LBO modeling, LBO modeling tests from actual funds, actually, which is unique to Wall Street Oasis. It has private equity cases that we source from the community each year. And so, yeah, And we're actually, you get lifetime access once you purchase, and we're making like a huge revamp actually to all our interview courses. We're super excited about it. We're going to actually start pulling the 20,000, or I think it's almost 30,000 questions from our company database, creating these like dynamic flashcards within the interview courses so that you're able to actually flip through and start just drilling and seeing a ton of interview questions really fast. Because I know a lot of people are just like nervous about what are they going to be asked, but it's like, it's one thing to go through and like learn about the industry, learn about LBO modeling tests, but then sometimes you just want to just like drill and practice and practice and practice and see a lot of questions so that nothing kind of throws you off. You've seen it all. And so that's the goal with kind of these new flashcard module we're adding pretty soon, which I'm excited. People are waiting on me. I need to get back to them with tagging topics and all that stuff. So hopefully within the next 2 to 3 weeks, that'll be live in all the interview courses, IBPE, consulting, and hedge fund. Let's see. AJ asked, we get this question a lot. When are you considered to be too old to join as an IB analyst in London or New York? If you have as much gray hair as me, you're probably too old. You're probably too old. If you look really young, the harder part isn't the fact that you're old. It's going to be if you're like much older than the associates. I think they start getting concerned about you taking direction from people younger than you. So it's more about that being the issue rather than age being an issue. I think there is a little bit of ageism around them being concerned with like if you have a young family that you're trying to start. So let's say you're 35 and you're trying to break in as an investment banking analyst. The hard part is like, well, you probably are about to start to have kids or have kids. And so there's probably ageism around that. It's like, they know you're going to want to get out of the office to be with your child. Like it's just natural. So I think it's a much harder time to sacrifice when you have that young family. So when do you consider to be too old to join as an IB analyst in London or New York? I would say if you miss the boat coming out of undergrad, you can still get in laterally, usually through a few ways. Usually transaction advisory services through the Big Four is probably the most common, but you can also get in through valuation work, going to like a middle market bank first, and then maybe lateraling up to a bigger brand name. That happens from time to time. And then even doing like FP&A work, then doing Big Four, then doing banking. I've seen that. And that sometimes you're an analyst and you're 28 years old, 30 years old. I've seen it. It's pretty rare. So AJ, I don't know how old you are, if that question is for yourself, but I wouldn't let age deter you. If you start getting into the 30s, I would say that it's probably better. Your better shot is probably trying to get into a top MBA program to kind of reset and pivot your career. Banks pull very heavily from the top, say 20 MBA programs, top 7, even more. If you can get into the top 7, big advantage for on-campus recruiting and making sure you're getting good swing of the bat for the amount of tuition you're paying. So that's what I would recommend. Let's see. Let's get some coffee, guys. I'm dragging today. Dragging. Let's see here. Here we go. Aluwadoi Insula Adetona says, hi, thanks for this. Please, what resources do I need to navigate from a career in finance to investment banking? I would probably start with the investment banking interview course simply because it includes the networking course as part of the package. The networking course, learning how to network properly on LinkedIn is probably, forget investment banking, is probably just one of just networking and information sessions, informational interviews, coffee chats, getting good on the phone, being comfortable calling people on the phone, asking for that. That's probably the most dramatic skill that you could ever develop in terms of outcomes for your career. It's just meeting people and building relationships. So that's the main resource, is just figuring out a way to have a system for your networking such that you hold yourself accountable to actually be building a lot of connections, to actually be building a lot of connections, following up with those connections, getting on a lot of phone calls. I'm talking like 5 a week of new people you don't know from different firms. I'm talking from there, staying in touch with those people, then following up, 3 to 6 months later and giving them updates on where you're at and what's going on with you. Building those relationships, sending them, congratulations when they do something well, or you hear something about them in the news or their firm in the news. I think that skill tends to be the most dramatic, incredibly dramatic, eye-opening game changer for so many people. And people hate hearing this, by the way. People hate hearing this because there's a lot of introverts out there. They're like, screw this. They should take me with my 3.8 GPA from da da da. It's like, no one cares. No one cares about your GPA. No one cares that you had a hard major or you went to a semi-target school or target school. Nobody really cares. There's a bunch of other kids just like you with similar stats. They're going to take the kid that got on the phone with them and they actually enjoy the conversation with. Wouldn't you? You have to be stuck with somebody in the office for 15 to 18 hours a day. Are you going to choose the person that you want to have a conversation with and is more interesting and is more multi-dimensional and is a good conversationalist? I would. So that's how you navigate from one career to the next. You develop that skill set as fast as humanly possible, and you start getting putting yourself in uncomfortable situations to learn, to sound stupid, to ask stupid questions, and just put yourself out there, say you're interested. Now, ideally, you're not wasting a bunch of informational interviews asking super basic questions that you could just Google or read on WSO forums. Like, you should know the basics. Ideally, you're asking more interesting, nuanced questions, specifically like around, IB as a career and, what's it like and the specific groups and deal flow and stuff like that. Let's see what else we got here. Looks like we have like all YouTube, but I think a lot of them are coming from LinkedIn. They're just not flowing in. Juan Paulo, is IB safe? Here we go. This is funny. Question from LinkedIn. Juan Paulo says, is IB still a safe path to wealth, as they say on Wall Street? Or you think the new market conditions have changed that dynamic thinking in the next 10 to 20 years? Hey, Juan Pablo, I still think in terms of like a risk reward profile, yes, investment banking is still one of the better, better paths, safest paths to wealth. It's definitely not safe. It's one of the safest. It's definitely not safe. I mean, look at the markets right now. There's been some deep cuts. But in terms of like risk reward, it's definitely less risky than like a hedge fund role, for example. It's definitely less risky. Maybe computer science and becoming an engineer, a software engineer, it has a similar kind of safe path to wealth if you're really good. You don't even need to be at one of the top tech firms, but if you're like even a B player there, your skills are likely going to be in high demand. So yeah, I mean, it depends how you define safe and wealth. But I'd say if you're willing to put in a lot of time and sacrifice, yes, it is a pretty safe path to wealth. The question is, you think you want it because you see the big numbers of compensation, but once you get into it and you're living it, it's a very different thing. And so I'd caution you to think, if I just had this job, if I was just getting paid 6 figures, it'd be great. I know it's one thing to think 70 hours a week, I can do it. Try actually staying up in an office, staring at a screen for 15 hours a day, every 6 or 7 days a week. And then after a year of doing that straight, see if you can still do it with a smile on your face and without getting bitter. And this is the problem with the industry. This is the problem with attrition. No matter how much they're throwing money at these kids, a lot of them are still leaving. We just had a thread up on Wall Street Oasis the other day. The guy was like, I'm a second-year analyst in investment banking. I'm leaving without anything lined up. It's like the biggest no-no in your career. Like, don't leave until you have another job lined up. But a lot of kids just don't care. They're like, I got to get out. That I can tell you, at the end of my second year at Rothschild, I was ready to get. I couldn't go. I basically couldn't go any longer. I had the job lined up in private equity, so I had an exit. But I wouldn't have been able. I don't care how much money they threw at me. Like, I wouldn't have been able to continue at that rate. I couldn't have survived. It would have mental breakdown, whatever have you, after 2 years of working for that long. Here's a good question from Nicholas. what are things to keep up, stay in touch with for networking? Is this more personal? Is there some general things? So you should be using a networking tracker spreadsheet. We have that in there, part of our networking course, but basically that will allow you to like have names, the last time you spoke with them, notes from the call, specifically like, hey, do they have a daughter and a son? How old are they? What's going on with their lives? So like you can be like, and then what specific groups they work in, what interests do they have outside of work even? So you could say, let's say they're like huge Boston Celtics fans. You could be like, hey, let's say they won the championship or whatever. You could just send a quick note, be like, hey, congrats on the win. Super exciting. Jaylen Brown had such an amazing game, whatever. Just comment on the game, show that you noticed or paid attention. And that's going to just be another little ping on their radar of like, oh yeah, I remember Nicholas. Very cool. Like, that he remembered that or whatever. It just puts you at the top of mind. So it's suddenly like, oh shit, I'm looking for somebody for X, Y, and Z job. Maybe Nicholas, hey, Nicholas, can you send your resume again? I forgot, blah, blah, blah. You'll often hear that when you're not like pushing your resume and you're just like developing personal relationships where you're commenting on like sports, social media, whatever have you, deals, or just giving updates on yourself. Be like, hey, Patrick, it's Nicholas again. Thanks again for talking with me a few months ago. I just want to give you an update. I ended up getting an internship at da-da-da. I really wanted to thank you for the advice you gave me related to X, Y, and Z, meaning, the resume advice you gave me, this on this deal flow or this on specific how to change this and that. I made those changes and I think it really helped me. I was getting a much higher response rate. Just want to give you the good news. Thanks so much again. That's going to make the person feel good. They're now more vested in your success. So it should be anytime you have a major update, like you have a new internship, you have a new kind of great news to share, or there's a news story related to something that like a deal they worked on that was announced in the news. That's a great time to reach out and be like, hey, I saw this, congrats to your group. That's a huge deal. Very exciting. Hope all is well. Something like that. It can be super short, 2-3 lines, just to kind of touch base. And I don't think you should be doing this every month or even every other month. I think it's like minimum time you want to be waiting so you don't seem overburdened, like burdening them is 3 months. I even suggest closer to 5 to 6 months. When you're slow playing it, which is what you should be doing. You shouldn't be trying to force the relationship unless you guys like hit it off and there's like, you have like a ton of things in common. You feel like you can build like a true friendship, then for sure, then accelerate it, then meet for coffee, then go out and like just start being friends. But if it's more of a pure, like just, hey, friendly conversation, you guys got along and you want to keep in touch, the things you can keep in touch with are related to like pop culture, reference, sports, anything related to like things that they're interested in, deal flow or news in the industry that they work in, just being like, hey, I saw this, any thoughts on da-da-da, not annoyingly like things, like something that would actually be interesting to you. And then, any updates, any major updates on what you've done, crediting them for their advice, ideally, because you've had a 20 or 30 minute, 10 to 20 minute conversation with them where they gave you great advice. You applied that advice. You're thankful to them because the reason you're so successful now and the reason you're building momentum now is because of that advice they gave you. They now are vested in your success. It feels really good when you give somebody advice, they take it and then they start seeing success. You feel good. So you're giving them value by doing that, by giving them that update. And so do that. So many people don't do that. Anyways, Don asks, do you think cash business, vending machines, real estate, which require physical traveling is feasible? Do you have any advice as an ex-banker who started online business? Hey, Don, cool questions. Do I think cash businesses which require physical traveling is feasible? Do you mean like while you're working in banking? No, if you're still working in banking, I wouldn't try to go into those businesses unless you have a manager like running it, because it's just setting yourself up for failure. Now, investing in vending machines, I actually looked into this because I thought vending machines was a super interesting business. From the minimal research that I did do, a couple things. Number one, you obviously want to have the spots for the machines and agreements signed before you actually purchase any machines. So obviously the most important thing for vending machines is location, and having, ideally you start having a run or a route that you're able to hit a lot of your vending machines in a short amount of time, so that somebody either doing the deliveries or you're having to do the deliveries on an emergency, you can do it in a few hours, and cover and hit all your machines. You don't want to have like 5 hours away or 2 hours away. You kind of want to have them in a certain area. You want to have them high foot traffic, obviously, and then early on, just testing with lots of different products to see what sells through before investing more heavily in inventory, before you spend a ton of money on that. So I think cash businesses are super interesting. In terms of real estate, same thing. If you're trying to be managing real estate, managing an Airbnb, VRBO, whatever, it actually eats up a lot more time than you think in terms of trying to manage that stuff, managing the listings, managing the pricings. And a lot of these like professional property manager places, they charge you ridiculous fees. So like, I'm talking like 20% off of the gross bookings. And then on top of that, you're having to pay like state and city tax. And this, by the time it flows down to you, you're getting like 50% or 60% of the actual gross bookings. I think if you can find somebody responsible privately in the area to manage the real estate for you, it can be interesting. Although I would say that now it's kind of the worst possible time to acquire real estate, in my humble opinion, simply because you have, yes, prices have come down, but the actual financing for these homes has like tripled. And I don't see rates coming down anytime soon, especially now that inflation came in so hot last week. So I don't think, I honestly don't think that it's a great time for real estate. I actually was like, I don't know where to put money right now. I mean, I think picking and choosing stocks, I think certain stocks are kind of interesting. Bonds are kind of interesting right now. I know they're boring, but in terms of risk return, bonds have definitely kind of been a little bit more interesting right now in terms of risk reward. And any advice as an ex-banker starting an online business? I'd say yes. I would say for anyone starting an online business, start before you quit. Like, you can learn so much just by setting up a splash page, trying to get people on a wait list, setting up an MVP of an online business. It's so cheap and so easy to set up a lot of stuff before you jump. I see so many people like basically fall in love with ideas. They fall in love with ideas instead of falling in love with execution and testing. And so people will be like, I have this idea for this marketplace where this and these people come together. I'm like, do you know how hard a two-sided marketplace is? Do you know how hard it is to build a community? Like right now, I would fail 99 times out of 100 if I tried to build a community nowadays. SEO is harder. Everything is hard. Everything is harder. Getting attention. Everyone's on IG, everyone's on LinkedIn, everyone's on Facebook, everyone's on TikTok, Snapchat. Good luck trying to get people's attention and get them onto a distinct platform. Wall Street Oasis survives just because of the strong community and the great people coming in there, because it's built a brand up for so long. But it's really hard to build that. So if you're going to build something, I would highly recommend before you jump and quit, you actually try to like do some testing, at least to see if you can find some good product market fit around, like, hey, talk to users, talk to people where you're solving the problem, see if they agree to pay for something, see if you can collect the money, say, hey, this is what I'm building. Would you be willing to kind of put a down payment on towards building this, and see if you can get 100 people to pay you $10. If you can't get 100 people to pay you $10, $1,000 as a deposit towards something you're building that's going to solve a problem for them, that's a real problem that's another thing. People create companies all the time to solve problems that aren't big enough for anyone to pay anything for. So yes, there are problems that are annoying, but then they're like, yeah, we're going to charge you $50 a month for this problem. And people are like, well, I might pay $5 a month to solve that. And so then suddenly you don't really have a business. So I'd say anyone starting an online business, not just an ex-banker, just get in the habit of like testing things. So whether it's a e-commerce business, D2C, see if you can find your target market cheaply, organically in communities. Facebook groups, and ask a lot of questions to make sure that your thesis isn't skewed by your unique perspective, and that you're getting a really good sense of the overall the customer and what their needs truly are, so that you can make sure you're not just developing the product the right way, but marketing it properly, such that you're hitting on all their pain points and all the associated ways your product or service helps solve that. So I think that's all I'd say. I have a lot of advice on that. I could go on and on and on, but let's see what else we got.
Real quick, guys. I know there are a lot of questions everyone wants to ask. Just we'll try to get all of them. So relax and keep posting.
This is funny from Kimberly. Easy peasy, keep spamming. I think this is in reference to the networking. Yeah, keep spamming, but it's not really spamming. I mean, ideally, you're tailoring your message somewhat on LinkedIn, like especially in the connection request. You're not just like mass connection requesting everybody, and being like, "Hey, my name's Kimberly. I'm from this. It's more like, "Hey, this is Kimberly. I saw that you go to XYZ. I'm also an alum. You know, I saw you're an alum from XYZ. I also go there. I'm a sophomore. I'd love to chat for 10 minutes just to hear more about your hear more about your career in banking, whatever." So it's a little bit more personal because you're saying alum. Then the next set of 100 people you're spamming would be like people who are in this specific group. "Hey, I noticed you're in the venture capital and private equity group. I'm really interested in learning more about I was hoping, and I saw that you are currently working in the industry. I was wondering if you take 5 to 10 minutes to hop on a call." That type of stuff. Any thoughts on CFA and breaking into private equity research, or asset management? CFA, yes for equity research and asset management, no on private equity. That's easy. That was an easy one. It's not going to help you for PE. For PE, you really need to be at a top bank, or in investment banking, M&A, LFIN, ideally top name brand, or network your ass off to get to middle market. Equity research and asset management, yes, they do value the CFA. What is this? The question 99% of freshmen at targets have is, how do you leverage before? Am I reading this wrong? To bulge bracket investment banking? How do you leverage before Manhattan? Not sure I understand the question. Let's see what else we got here. I'm looking through the list. Don says, "Oh, cool. I plan to move to an endowment fund and I expect 35-hour working week hybrid. Given this, if I want to do any side hustle, should I start an online business?" Don, hell yeah. That's awesome. That's an awesome setup. For sure, start an online business. You could start a physical business if that's in your location, if you know you're going to be there for a while. The hard part with the physical business is if you ever want to move, let's say you meet someone and you want to move in with them and they're like in a different city, or for whatever reason you want to move, the physical business is obviously very limiting. You can always get a manager, but it's not the same thing. So that's the great part about online businesses. It keeps you potentially working remote. And if eventually you can get that hybrid to fully remote, it's could be great. So yeah, I think you should go for it, man. Here we go. Matt Gluck says, "Hey, Patrick, 3 months till I start as an IB analyst after graduation full-time." Congrats, Matt. Best thing to do in this interim is hit the ground running day one, shortcut prep, accounting, modeling. Number one thing to do, rest and sleep. Sleep a lot, because you got to be ready. You got to be ready to hit the ground. Be ready for the worst of it. Prepare all of your friends, relatives, family. Let them know that this is going to be a tough, especially first year for you, and not to expect you to be able to call them back forever. If you have a significant other, make sure they're well warned in advance that this is a pretty brutal lifestyle. That's number one. Number two, so number one, sleep and warn people. Number three, then yes, I would definitely do some financial modeling training prior. It doesn't have to be like weeks and weeks and weeks of prep. I'm talking like 1 week of work. Specifically, you're probably just bullshitting on your classes anyway. So like I would spend a lot more time doing our modeling courses than doing, working, doing whatever basket weaving at, whatever electives you're taking now in your senior year. Now that you have the full-time offer. So yeah, I would spend some time doing that for sure, just to make it a little bit less of a stressful transition, especially if you're not a finance or accounting major. I came from a liberal arts background. I can tell you that first 6 months was incredibly painful. I wish I had something like we developed the course that we had, because it would have made it a lot less painful. If you're already feeling good about that stuff, though, it's not. You're going to go through training again when you hit the desk. I just think it's better, because by the time you hit training, you can really work on speed rather than knowledge and speed. So like when you sit on the desk and they're training you, you can just be working on your, like, literally playing the instrument the proper way. Just make sure you're practicing on a PC, not a Mac. Number one, so you're getting used to the quick keys there, and make sure you're practicing the right way. You're not developing bad habits. That's all I'd say, because those will hurt you in that first year if you have to unlearn bad habits. Which of your courses might stand out in a CV for McKinsey, Bain, BCG, corporate finance practice? We don't really have any strategy courses, but I would say like a strategy business model course. I still think it looks good if you take Excel modeling. I'd say PowerPoint for finance. PowerPoint is super important in consulting. So I would say Excel modeling and PowerPoint would probably be two that would be really good to have, with PowerPoint probably edging out even Excel, because knowing how to present, knowing how to build your slides properly, and learning how to play that instrument properly is going to be really critical for your consulting career. Let's see what else we got here. Do you need a college degree to get a finance job if you have a strong sales background? I'd ask, if you have a strong sales background, why do you need a finance job? Go do sales. You can make a lot more in sales if you get into the right company with the right product and right service. That's all I'd say. Kimberly says stock first, then spam. Noted. Yeah, you're catching on, Kimberly. I like this. So I would say filter, not stock. Filter first. Make sure your templates are tailored to that group of say 20 to 100 people, or 20 to 200 people. The more specific you can get, if you're going to get like really more granular, you're going to get a much higher response rate if your emails or messages are targeted. I had somebody go the opposite way once, and I really thought it was interesting. They would super stock and be like, "Hey, I saw that on your LinkedIn you had this, and the people, they'd get like a 30 or 40% response rate from their outreach versus like a 5%, 10%. So, but it took a lot longer for each one of those messages, because obviously they did actually have to stock, and it's half the time you can't find anything because everyone has their profiles private, as they should nowadays. Do you have to go through IB analyst time to break into private equity? No, you do not always have to go do investment banking to break into private equity. However, it is still the most common path. So, for example, one of my mentees, Grace, she is going directly to the buy side at Blackstone, and she had offers from Citi full time for investment banking as well. By the way, she went to a non-target. Go Grace, kicking ass. But yeah, so I think for you don't have to do it. It's just very rare to be able to go straight to the buy side out of undergrad. And it's becoming a little bit more common, but again, there's so few seats. Like some of these mega funds have analyst programs. A lot of people don't even hear about it or know about like when they're recruiting, because they're just picking from the top target schools or people they know. So it's not like it's a widely known thing, like at the KKRs of the world and the like the Warburgs of the world and the mega funds. So it doesn't, you don't have to, but it's for most people, for most mortals like you and me, yeah, you're probably going to have to go through banking to have a shot. Let's see what we got here. Newsrun says, I'm a CFA, but my bachelor's is from Sri Lanka. 3 years of experience covering industrial in Japan. Since moving to the US, and I haven't been able to even get interviews in high finance. Help. Newsrun, first off, your English and your spelling, just in the comment here, it's English is your second language. You need to improve your English, because there were several mistakes just in that one message you sent me here. So I assume if you're making mistakes in this message you sent here on YouTube, there's probably mistakes in your outreach emails. That's number one. Number two, I would make sure that your resumes, if you're not getting any interviews at all, your CV is probably outdated or does some of the things that shouldn't be done for high finance. Number one, you probably have like an objective statement, or you're on 2 pages, like 2 things that are just huge no-nos for resumes. So I'd invest in a professional resume review and or download our template for free under resources at the top of wallstreetwsO.com. Make sure your resume is in that format. Make sure you're quantifying on your resume the results, the impact you had. Now, with this big of a gap on your resume, it's going to be tough. You may want to enroll, try to join us for our finance research internship to try and fill in some of that gap so you're not left not working at all. The other question is, you've been here since 2019. Do you have a visa? Do you have work? Are you able to work, or do you need a visa to work here? If you need a visa to work here, it's going to be very hard, because especially now that like there's been dramatic cuts. If you don't need a visa, you have a work permit here, or you're a permanent resident or citizen. I don't think you'd be a citizen, but if you have a permanent visa, I would make that very clear on your resume, like at the top, be like, no visa needed. Like literally, that should be there, because when people see Sri Lanka, they're going to probably assume, oh, he needs a visa, forget it. Your resume is going to get thrown out. So those are the first couple of things. The last thing I would say is you need to make sure that your networking has a very specific process, and you're reaching out to other CFA holders, other people, and you're getting more targeted around the types of jobs you're searching for. So are you looking only for equity research? Well, maybe you should broaden your net. If you're looking for anything in high finance, then make sure when you're targeting people in specific verticals, you're not just saying, hey, I want to join high finance. You're saying, hey, I'm really interested in, and then say whatever that person is specifically in. I'd love to learn more. Start getting on more phone calls. So there could be some things holding you back. Okay, here we go. I'm in tech the last 3 years. I'm a US citizen, MBA. Thank you. My English is not usually bad. Okay, cool. So if you're a US citizen, oh, this is like easy then, man. Like you have an MBA. Okay, you have an MBA. Thank you. My English is not bad. So it might be something to do with, are you getting on phone calls with people? Like you're not getting formal interviews. Are you just dropping your resume online somewhere to try and get interviews? Or are you actually like talking with people on the phone? So, and it also depends what MBA you're from. Like if it's a low ranked MBA program, no name MBA, it's probably hurting you more than it's helping you, to be honest. Yeah, if you speak well, you're comfortable speaking on the phone. Even if you're not comfortable speaking on the phone, even if you suck on the phone, you need to get on the phone with people and build relationships, because it's not, the online portals are not giving you jobs. People are giving you jobs, or they're not giving you interviews. People are giving you interviews. So you need to get to the people that decide who gets the interview. So screw the online portals, stop dropping your resume, being like, I'm not getting any interviews. Well, how many people have you talked to this week? Have you talked to more than one person who works in the industry? Probably not. How many connections do you have on LinkedIn? Quick, I'm gonna look you up. Can't lie. I'm looking you up right now. Yeah, I think, with the CFA, MBA, the fact, maybe your expectations are really high, and you only want.
He has 500 plus connections.
Okay, good.
Doing connections.
You contribute to system analytical mindset, attention to detail, clear understanding. Okay. So the other thing that's gonna be tough. Well, you had some times in equity research. MBA. Oh, you're asking, should you go to MBA? Yeah, MBA would be great for you. MBA would be great for you, because you kind of need that reset at this point, especially with the problem is you have this middle office tag on your, you have a lot of LinkedIn connections. Great. Are you converting those to calls? So like little phone calls, you need to get on more phone calls. That's it. You need to be asking for phone chats, building relationships. That's it. You got to get yourself uncomfortable. I know it's annoying, but that's something you got to do, because it's going to make you a better interviewer too when you have the real interview. So it's good practice either way. The other thing I'd say is you look pretty intimidating from your profile. I'd smile a little bit. You look really serious. So you want to come across as like friendly, like serious is good, but come across as friendly too. The other thing I'd say to you is your brand right now is really risk management. You're tagged right now as like middle office. Like that's your brand, which is going to make it even harder to transition. So what you could potentially do, another angle is if you're not getting anything for front office, high finance roles, you could try to transition, start networking with people in risk at the banks. Get in that way, get into middle office at a bank, and then start networking right away with the people in the front office and just be personable, develop that skill of like smiling, like joking. Hey, you guys have an interview for me yet? Okay, oh, not yet. Okay, I'm going to be back here next month. Guess what? After 8 months, every time you're talking to them, hey guys, how about now? And you probably want to wait 6 months before you start that crap because it's going to piss off your risk manager a lot. But if you're that guy, that squeaky wheel, where every month you're going to HR, you're bringing them flowers, you're joking around with people, and you're just that likable person in the office, and you're doing a great job at your middle office job, you can literally just work your way into those interview processes. And then if you're ready with the interviews, which you will be because you will have done so many informational interviews at that point, you're going to be so good about talking about your path, what you're looking for, blah, 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 that you can go. And with all your experience, I bet you can ask to be a second year or a third year. So that's one option. The second option is just go get the MBA. If you can get into a top MBA program, go there. It's going to be hard with your background, but something that you could do. And like you have a very compelling case for the value, the MBA actually being worth it. If you're having trouble breaking in with the recruiting, but you could save yourself $200,000 and actually just start getting on the phone too. So, no worries, man. No worries. Thank you. Thanks for joining. Really interesting because you're doing a lot of things right, News Run. You're doing a lot of things right. So just, yeah, it's just your brand. It's just your brand right now. You've been in that risk spot for a long time, but you were in the equity research. Like I'd look for like lateral positions at smaller banks, just to try and get into some sort of value. You already had equity research. So like you should be able to get into like a valuation shop or a small M&A shop. And then once you're there and you have a few deals on your resume, boom, done. Again, you could be having issues with your resume. So I would definitely invest in a resume review. You have a job, so it's not that much. Okay. Number one thing to do for a 17-year-old trying to break into IB. People laugh. And I used to laugh when high school students would come on Wall Street Ways to be like, just relax, have a good time. Now I'm not so sure. Like now I'm like, shit, they should probably start like building their resume. We have high school kids who joined our finance research internship. I would say developing, I mean, man, at 17 years old, I can't even tell you. I didn't know up from down, left from right. But if you're ready to start kind of learning, you have all the time in the world, in the sense of like developing skills and a long career ahead of you. You actually only have about 2 years before recruiting starts. So that's the scary part. It's like you actually could do a lot of damage if you're starting at 17, 18, 19, because then by 19, you're ideally at university or college, and you at that point, you already have a network, you already have all that stuff. So that's all I'd say. I'd say if you can start talking to people in the industry, start trying to build that network, build out your LinkedIn, make sure it's professional, make sure you don't have like this weird, funny dog with big lips on your on your LinkedIn. Oh, it's a hilarious avatar. I would for sure do that. Try to make it a little more professional. I don't know where you're going to school. So yeah, number one thing you could do is go to a school that actually recruits out of IB. So you can find that if you go to the company database, go to the investment banking industry report, there's a tab called universities there, and you can see what schools or what banks pull from what schools most commonly. And so you can get a sense. Sometimes there's some schools that are smaller that have a pretty good placement rate. So look into those. It doesn't have to be an Ivy League school. It doesn't have to be a super target. It could be a liberal arts college like I went to. It could be a state school with a great finance program, stuff like that. So, all right, Big Bro's doing the IB interview course right now. So you're ahead of the game. Good for you. Thanks. Is Fordham or OSU better? I don't know. I'm biased. One of my mentees from Fordham, and she just kicked major ass. So I'd say Fordham. No, Fordham only not because it's a better school. Fordham simply because of the location. You're just right there in New York. I think it's a huge advantage with the proximity because you actually can meet people in person and develop a stronger relationship. So I'm always going to pick a school in New York, even if it's like a complete non-target. And Fordham's a great school. So. Anyways, I think that's it for now. We're running up on an hour. I'm going to lose my voice. But thanks, everyone, for joining. I will be back next week. And same time, same place, everywhere. Thanks so much, everybody. Talk soon.